the heck? uh, welcome. It's the Real and Raw Show. I'm with Serrano,
And I'm Brian.
and we're here again. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. And here we are. It's a Monday before Brian leaves out of town, out of the country, different time zone, different time. And Brian asked me again, what are we going to talk about? And so it's that time of year here in the United States because we have Canadian friends too. But it's that season, it's that time where I don't know if you've noticed, but it's like in the morning, there's more light. In the evening, there's more light. And so that kind of means that the seasons are changing, the times are changing. And whether you notice it or not, things do change. And whether you like it or not, things do change. So I thought we'd start out about talking about like daylight savings and not only daylight savings, but realize whether we want to or not, things do change. They change with or without us. And then we were talking about how and Brian will talk about that too, that, sometimes it seems like we go around the block about, mindset and things like that. But I think sometimes seeing things from a different perspective, I'm all about different perspective and how we all see it different. Sometimes I think talking about these in different ways, sometimes it's like an aha moment or make things click a different way just by talking about the obvious, but sometimes it's not obvious to us. What do you think about all that, Brian?
I think that people are going to fight this unless they embrace it. You're either going to embrace it for all and obviously it's like rungs on a ladder. You climb up the rungs of the ladder of change, development, and you can fight it if you want. But number one, our life is going to be over pretty soon in the whole scheme of things. Number two is that why would you fight something? And I get it. Some people are resistant to it. Age might play a role into that, but this is nothing new. It's just a matter of like the day that you're working on and what it looks like, and any movement forward once you get that ball rolling is, and who knows? I mean, especially with automation and, a lot of this stuff, people have an opinion on without any implementation, without a process, without a purpose, you can find the pros and cons to every single thing that could expedite, more time with customers or whatever it might be. But also, though, you can look at the negative of it. Well, which, there's always going to be that. But I just look at it from a standpoint of like anybody that's driven, anybody that's an achiever, the seasons don't matter. You're still going to work your butt off 16, 20 hours a day. You still know what your goals are. And it doesn't matter what the world is doing or how long the days are, if anything, and I thought about this right before we went live, is that this is the time where the achievers put it in overdrive, because some people are just coming out, the days are getting longer. So they got, temperatures are getting warmer across the country and around the world if we've got any international viewers. But it's not anything new, anybody that's an achiever, anybody that's up to big things is already doing the work. They just have more time to do it now. And if anything, the division between somebody that might be close to you gets only magnified because you're putting in the extra hours. You're doing the extra emails. You're doing all the extra work that other people are not willing to do. Plus, when it's nicer out, usually people want to go out and celebrate and have fun or whatever, which is great. But it only makes it more tempting to somebody that's an achiever to not do the things that are making them, successful. But they love it because when somebody else is focusing on something else, they're focused on where they want to go. And so I think it's a perfect time for achievers and people up to big things to really magnify what they're doing.
And that's the thing, whether you're achieving things or not, it doesn't matter. It just, I think it like the seasons or whatever, either people get really stoked because, daylight brings more happiness, more sunshine or whatever,
Right.
Or people feel more productive. I mean, I think the energy changes, people hibernate, I don't know what it is. I mean, I think people work harder in the spring and and then they just
Well,
I don't know.
well, and here's another thing too, and I'm not a weather person. I could care less about the weather because what I got to do doesn't matter about the weather. Now, a parallel to this is that when people get upset that the
Yeah,
weather
but you're a wedding guy. It does affect you.
in all these years I've never looked at the weather because I still got a job to do.
Yeah.
Matter if it's inside outside, there's still an outcome there regardless. And I don't want to get that in my head. I want to
Yeah.
have my game face on, you know. Now, what I'm trying to convey here is that what I've witnessed is people that are so consumed by the weather. So, like, let's replace that with change, right? And they get so in their head about what the weather's going to be like, but the issue is they don't have anything planned anyway. What are you going to do with it if it's nice out? Are you going to go fishing? Are you going to go for a walk? Whatever you're going to do, and they don't have any answer. They just want to have something to yell and scream at the TV about when they're not going to use it anyways.
But
And so,
Brian, just for those that know that you're a wedding production, I just for those viewers go, wait a second, but this guy does weddings. Wait a second, we gotta stop the precedent. For those that are curious right now, what do you mean the weather has nothing to do when you do weddings? This is gonna be a clip because you gotta answer that question right now. You're gonna make this a clip later.
in my mind, it
Answer.
makes no difference because the outcome is all that matters. I don't want to get into my head that the weather, there's an SOP, there's a standard operating procedure, there's backup plans, there's all this sort of thing on wedding day, but I don't get it in my head in terms of in terms of it spooking me into anything other than where I need it to be.
Okay.
Whether it doesn't matter. I mean, the show must go on. I don't want to sound cliche, but it's really true. And it
But
if
Brian,
there is weather,
if I'm a bride and I say I want a beautiful wedding outside, Brian, what are we gonna do to make sure that happens? I want to know, what are you gonna tell me as a bride right now? Come on.
sure. What's our backup plan?
Oh, you're gonna say we'll have a backup plan for that, Lynn. Don't worry about that. That's what you're
Well,
gonna
well,
say.
no, we're gonna talk it through about what that is. It's like, yes,
Okay.
the ideal the ideal situation is in this picturesque location or whatever in the middle
Okay.
of nowhere. But let's just say if that doesn't happen, what happens in terms of weather? What are we going to do next?
Okay. So you're not gonna pop my bubble when I'm watching this thing and you said something about the weather
No,
doesn't matter. I'm like,
no,
wait a second, Brian, you
no,
just made me freak
no,
out.
no, no. This is not something that is for the customer. This is something in my mind when it comes to
Okay.
when it comes to a production.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like if the power goes out in a venue. Show must go on. Now, obviously, it might be, out of my control, but still, that doesn't mean that I'm going to have an SOP and everything is going to be aligned that we're going to, let the party go as long as it possibly can, given the circumstances. Where a lot of people would just be like, "Well, it's out of my hands. I'm no longer responsible." That's not ideal in my book.
You see, and that's what exactly the point I'm trying to make here. You see, you in an instant know how to change your mind, change your perspective, and handle a situation when it comes right at that moment.
Right.
And most people can't do that, Brian. That's what
And,
I'm talking about.
and I
That was my point right there.
And I
And
think too is that it's like anybody that does not have a backup plan or situational awareness, as I call it, which I know gets more into self-defense and those kinds of things. But it's like, okay, what if this should happen? Then what do you do? Because the worst time to run it through your head, especially without improv training or without performing arts training, is to expect something that doesn't happen, and then there you are in front of a live audience, and you have to pick up the pieces, so to speak.
right. So you have the tools to handle whatever's happening
Right.
and to react the way you need to for those situations.
Well, and also too, another thing is that, and I've said this for years, and it takes somebody that is either improv based or theater based or production based, is that a backup plan only works if those people that are involved in it know what it is. Like for instance, like if somebody's giving a toast at a wedding, if they don't know what the backup plan is,
Yeah, it's not going
they're
to work.
potentially being wrung out to dry with embarrassment in front of their family and friends. That's not a good moment. And all it
Right.
would take is somebody talking to them. If this happens, then we're going to do this. I'll be walking you through the entire process. Anything you need, I'm right there. If anything should happen with microphones, because wireless microphones they run off a frequency just like cell phones, right? If anything
Right.
should happen, I'll be watching your every move and I'll just swap it out with you. You
Right.
continue on with your message because that time in between when something happens And until there's a response to it, whether on their face or whether to move the event forward, that's what people are going to remember. And it's going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people. So to guide people along with that. So if there is something that happens, they already know what to do because we've rehearsed it. Now we might not have went through a formal rehearsal, but they're still aware of what we're doing because I've thought about it.
Right.
And so you have an ideal situation, and then you have a backup situation. Okay.
So,
Sometimes you might even have multiple backup situations depending on what it is. But to think it won't happen, I believe, sets you up for failure. Big time.
Such is life.
Yep.
And that's the point I'm trying to get across today. Change, whether it's daylight savings or not, whether it's this or not, things are happening in life, whether you like them or not. People are here today, they pass tomorrow. I mean, things, we should not be surprised of the things that happen in life, but we always are. We always are moving along the highway, and damn it, a plane falls on the right in front of you. I mean, like, I don't know why we always get stunned, but we always get, like they say, don't get caught with your pants down, but sometimes, damn it, we get caught with our
not
pants
supposed
down.
to? What? Our pants are supposed to? What? I'm not wearing any pants right now.
Exactly. I know, that's the nice thing about doing these from home.
Yeah.
That's the point, that's the point I want to get across to today. It's like, and it's not to be no Debbie Downer or negative Nancy or nothing like that, but we need, life isn't a dress rehearsal. You need to keep going, and you need to take and realize and kind of shuck it off, laugh it off, or realize that these things are bound to happen. And if they're not bound to happen to you, they're going to bound to happen to someone else.
Right.
And
I think too is that the more that you lean into the what if scenarios, not to be like a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but you lean into coming to help save the day for other people, not because you're going to take credit for it or you're arrogant or egotistical, is that somebody has to deliver the outcome.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, from a truly selfless standpoint, is when it comes to events or whatever it might be, it's like, okay, who's going to come in and save the day and not make it about them? Also, though, one of the questions I ask myself every day that coincides with this is, what are you going to do about it? When something happens that's unfortunate, okay, there's two different trains of thought. You can either be at the source of it and deal with it and look at the optimism of it and the abundance of it, or, and obviously depending on the situation, all the way from somebody passing on to whatever it is that there is a positive and negative way to look at it.
Right.
But what are you going to do about it? Like, as Jason Redmond said, he's a retired Navy SEAL. His one of his methodologies is getting off the axe. That's the point of attack. So if you're dealing with something like such as somebody passing on, right, staying at that point of that person dying is the worst thing you can do, because the result's not going to change, and more than likely it's going to take you in a negative tailspin, versus looking at the, and I like how the most like progressive like funeral homes and whatnot have really framed and also to design their facilities in terms of like a celebration of life. So we're going to look at the positive side of this person and the memories. Now, you're still going to cry and go through the stages of grieving, but we're at least putting a positive spin on it instead of sitting there festering in they're no longer with us.
Right.
Because when you're like, let's say something goes bad, your brain is in a fight or flight mode. You can't be creative or have creative thoughts or what would I do, because you're using the opposite side of your brain that gives you access to that. When you're in fight or flight mode, you're just trying to survive the moment. That's why you can't think of a creative idea, versus never getting there, because it never turns to fight or flight.
Yeah. So, and again, I mean, we've said it over and over on the shows, but it does stop, and worth bringing up is that, when something's happening, you got to change your thought going, okay, you got to think of the good of the situation as opposed to the negative, because you're going to go down one hole, either the happy hole or the bad hole. Which hole are you going to take?
Well, and I've yet to find a situation where whenever something's happening to you, good, bad, or other, is that is not cured by staying in motion. Whether it's helping somebody else, whether it's having a list that you're not gonna sacrifice until you get it done, but always being in motion will help you. Yeah. Obviously, we're talking macro here. Might be a little bit different if it's isolated to, something more, like heartbreaking or what have you. But it's like I don't want to sound cliche, but I think that this time, where the days get longer, the weather gets nicer, it allows those that are already up to big things, because they never have an off season. We're working all the time, being big achievers. It allows us to put that in overdrive because the days are longer. We know that people are probably going to give in to leave work early, not send all those emails, right?
Vacations.
Go vacation, go golf, whatever it is. And that's great. But how bad do you want your success? How bad do you want the life that you want? And only we can decide what that is. And then obviously then the actions it's going to take to get there. And we might not even know those, but we know that if we sit down and eat Cheetos on our couch, probably not going to give us the outcomes we want, or not going to reach our goals faster.
Yep. Well, any wrap up ideas or thoughts you want to?
No, I just, and believe it or not, I'm not the biggest, like when it comes to technology or new operating system on my machines or whatever, I'm not the biggest fan of updating right away. I'm more of a slow mover unless it's absolutely necessary, because if it works, keep it going. Because for me, I want reliability. I want stability. And just because it's the newest thing out there doesn't necessarily mean it works for you, because you also have to disrupt what you already have going on. So when it comes to change and all that, I'm not the quickest person to change. But I'll tell you what, I would rather do that research for myself and that comfort up front, because then once I do it, I'm all in, versus doing it because it's sporadic but never fully committing. Hey, Sandy, thanks for being here. What else do you have? Because this is your topic. So in closing,
Well, I mean,
comments.
like I said, as far as change, you don't change on the updates on a quick draw. But no, so again, just change is going to happen whether you are quick to draw your update, because eventually something's not going to work right on your update, and eventually you're going to have to change it and get with the update, or whatever. But I mean, change is going to come inevitable, whether it's the daylight savings or whatever change is happening. It's going to come, and everything transition, day, night, whether you want the night to come or the day to come or whatever, it all is a season. And so just remember that it's there to propel you to move forward, whether you want to move forward. Your thoughts are going to have to move forward. You're going to age. I mean, everything is always in motion. Like you said, you got to be in motion. Go ahead,
Can I
Brian.
share one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Is that I look at, and there's various different memes out there in the world, is that there's three different types of people that make it happen, people that watch it happen, and people that don't know what's happening. There's also three different outcomes: something, nothing, or complain. Which one of those do you want to be? Ask yourself, which one of those do you want to be? Somebody that makes it happen, somebody that watches it happen, or somebody that doesn't know what's happening? And the interesting part for my brain is that 2/3 of those types of people and responses do absolutely nothing for the world. Which one do you want to be?
And I love that Sandy reminded us today's March 4th. So March 4th with change. There you go. Thank you, Sandy, for being an input on that. But yeah, so just be very mindful that, you can stay in your stinking thinking, and you can realize that, change is going to come whether you want to or not. You can stay on the train track and get run over by the train, or you can just move off the train track. But, you have the choice. It's all up to you of how you perceive and, and your perspective on that. But just remember that it's ultimately up to you how you see things and whether you give yourself a peace of mind or not. So with that said, next week we will not be live. I'll probably put a past recording up, and safe travels to you.
I sure will.
And come back home safe. And I love you and appreciate you. And thanks for being here.
Thanks, everyone. See you in a couple weeks.
Okay. Love you guys. Bye.